Tariffs, subsidies, and free markets. How is that going to impact you in the next several years based upon what the current administration is doing? You're going to find out more about that on St. Louis in Tune. Welcome to St. Louis in Tune, and thank you for joining us for fresh perspectives on issues and events with experts, community leaders, and everyday people who make a difference in shaping our society and world. I'm Arnold Stricker, along with co-host Mark Langston. Mark, it's good to see you. Haven't seen you for a while, sir.
Yeah, it's nice to be back in the studio, and it's just I've been dodging potholes and
for a long time.
That's right. I know. It seems that first it was ice on the roads, now it's
potholes.
Yeah. What the heck?
Folks, we're glad that you've joined us today. I want to thank our sponsor, Better Rate Mortgage, betterratemortgage.com. And you can listen to previous shows at stlintune.com. Please help us to continue to grow by leaving a review on our website, stlintune.com, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast platform. Our return to civility today is if you are in a large building that has elevators, this you can probably relate. Hold the elevator door for those who are entering or exiting. Elevator doors don't have common sense or courtesy, but we do. Now, some have that laser,
right? So
you can stick your hand in there.
You got to be in the right spot, though, for the laser.
That's correct.
If you're just using your hand, it's not. Sometimes you miss the laser.
Yeah,
stick an arm in there.
Or if people are gathering, or you see them down at the end of the hall, and you want me to hold the elevator?
Oh, don't go there. Okay, I can't tell you how many times I've been running for the elevator, and they just kind of look at you. Yeah, sorry.
Sometimes maybe you want to catch the next elevator.
I know, right?
So hold that elevator for those who are entering or exiting.
All right. Yeah, that would. Hold on. We got. Yeah. Thank you. That's great.
We've heard a lot about tariffs recently in the news, and I wanted to get some information out to listeners about tariffs and how they can impact us, maybe in a positive, maybe in a negative way. John Horn, who is currently professor of practice in economics in the Olin Business School at Washington University in St. Louis, is our guest today. He teaches MBA students microeconomics, macroeconomics, and industry analysis. He's an award-winning teacher, having been awarded the Reed Teaching Prize by the MBA and professional MBA students at Olin, and received a top 15% teaching award when he was an adjunct professor at the Robert H. Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland. Prior to joining the Olin Business School, he was senior expert in the strategy practice of McKinsey & Company, where he spent 9 years working with clients of Fortune Global 1000 on competitive strategy, wargaming workshops, and corporate and business unit strategy across a variety of industries and geographies. He's also a key contributor to developing new approaches to business unit and corporate strategy. More broadly, topics such as competitive dynamics, resource reallocation, and macroeconomic impacts on firms. He also assisted U.S. financial institutions with fair lending compliance as a consultant with Ernst & Young, and spent 5 years with the Brattle Group. He's published with the McKinsey Quarterly, the Harvard Business Review, and has a Ph.D. in economics from Harvard University and a bachelor's from the University of Michigan. And he's the author of Inside the Competitor's Mindset, which is published by MIT Press. John, thank you for joining us on St. Louis in Tune.
Can I say
Thanks for having me.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and I wanted to read that like that because John has a large background and a very solid understanding of tariffs, what we're going to talk about today, and their impact on us positively and negatively. And that's the purpose of the conversation, is to really, I guess, open the door on these things and let people know, should they be scared of the boogeyman that's awaiting from the tariffs, or should they embrace what's coming from tariffs? John, explain tariffs to us, first of all, and the various kinds that countries may utilize.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it, and for that kind introduction. Tariffs are just a fancy word for a tax. They're a tax which a country imposes on anything that is imported into that country in most cases. So say if France was to send something to the United States and the United States imposed a tariff, essentially it's a tax on top of the cost that the importer pays for that good from France. That tax tariff gets paid to the U.S. government, just like other taxes, income tax, sales tax, etc. There are sometimes export taxes or export tariffs where if you, say the United States wants to prevent a company in the U.S. from exporting to France or to Spain, they might tax exports, but almost always tariffs are imposed on goods which are goods or services brought into the country that is imposing the tariff.
It's an import. The importer, I guess, whoever's doing the importing, like Walmart, I just grabbed that. They're the ones that are paying that tax. Would that
logistically, yes. Yes. And then the tax is imposed at the border. So whoever is the first organization or individual, et cetera, who actually receives that good across the border, Customs Border Patrol says, before we let you have that bottle of wine, that T-shirt, that whatever, you've got to pay us a tax in order for us to release those goods to you. In the sort of simplest version of it.
I'm just spitballing here. Wouldn't you say that importer that is accepting those goods and paying that tax? If it was me, I'm going to pass that on to whoever I'm selling that import to. So if I'm selling it, go ahead.
So this is where it gets tricky when you think about this from a perspective of who actually pays the tax. So let's take just for simple example, a $10 T-shirt or $10 shirt which is being imported. And the government, the U.S. government says we're going to impose a 25% tariff. That's the world numbers has been drawn around for the tariff imposed tomorrow on April 2nd. That means that when that shirt is brought into the United States, that the $10 shirt has to pay a $2.50 tax. The importer has a couple of choices. They say, it cost me $12.50. So instead of selling it for $13 like I did before, I bought it for $10, sold it for $13 with no tariff. Now I have to pay $10 plus $2.50. So instead of selling it for $13 and making 50 cents, I'm going to sell it for $15 or $15.50. Pass the entire amount of the tariff on the consumers. That's one choice. Or the importer goes to the manufacturer in France and says, look, I used to buy this for essentially $10 from you, but now I have to pay $2.50 to the U.S. government, so I'm only going to pay you $7.50. That way, when you ship it to me for $7.50 and I add the $2.50 on top, I'm still essentially I'm out $10. I can still charge my customers $13. Somewhere in between, the money has to flow so that the $2.50 goes to the U.S. government. The third possibility is the manufacturer in France says, no, we're still going to charge you $10, and the customer in the United States says, we're still only to pay you $13, in which case it's the importer who has to lose $2.50 from the amount of the tax. But some one of those three groups has to pay. And what economics tells us is the most obvious is we'll make the consumer down the road. The consumer says, look, there are a lot of other shirts I can buy here in the U.S. for $10.50. Why would I pay you more? Or I could say, I was paying you $13. There's another shirt I can buy for $13.50. Why pay you $15.50? And so who actually ends up paying that $2.50? Who pays the different prices they're paying from before the tariff being imposed? Essentially, it gets down to who has flexibility and who can not have to engage in that economic transaction. And if you don't have to engage in that economic transaction, then you're not going to bury that tax. The person who says, I have to import that shirt, or I have to sell that shirt to the U.S., or I have to buy that shirt as a consumer, that's who's ultimately going to pay that $2.50.
And that could be a combination of the three, correct? They could all eat a little of it.
Exactly.
Great point.
Now, what are the macro benefits and drawbacks of tariffs? So you talked about with a great example of with the T-shirt or the shirt from France coming in, and whether the manufacturer of it or the importer or the recipient. How does this deal with the larger macroeconomics of our country? And what does it do to other countries?
So that's the $50,000 question, $64,000. What we do know from taxes more broadly is that in general taxes create less of whatever economic activity is being taxed. That's one of the reasons why governments sometimes impose taxes. If I don't want you to do a certain, if I didn't want you to consume as much alcohol, I tax alcohol. If I don't want you to take as many trips, I tax airplane flights. Whatever it is, if I don't want an activity, I tax it because we know in general that taxes reduce economic activity. And sort of basic microeconomics, demand and supply curves show us that happens. For the most part. So there's some very unique situations where it doesn't, but for the most part, we're going to have less of something. The question of what that means for the U.S., and we'll start with that perspective, the country doing the tariffing. If we don't want that activity to happen, then the tariffs are fine, because that's the point that we don't want imports to happen, so we put the tariffs in place and let imports happen. The question then is there someone in the United States who can do that instead? If that's still, say, if you still want to buy shirts, are there shirt manufacturers in the United States? And are there shirt manufacturers in the United States who can produce shirts at about the same cost or similar cost? Then okay, we're just going to ship from French shirts to U.S. shirts, maybe not that much of a difference in terms of economic output. But the challenge with the current global situation and economic situation is that there are a lot of things we buy from the rest of the world because those products and services are produced in the rest of the world and not in the United States. And some of them, it could take 18 months to 2 years to build up the capability. For some, it could take years and years to build up the ability to produce those products and services at a cost-effective manner. And that's the question I think is everyone's trying to figure out is if we put 25% tariffs across the board, there's going to be some rather major disruption because we can't produce everything all at once. And are there going to be pauses or delays on some of those tariffs to compensate for that, or is 25% across the board, we're just going to have to deal with it so we can actually build up production here in the U.S.?
As I was reading historically, our country has used some tariffs, especially during kind of the buildup of the country and the Industrial Revolution to get our manufacturing going. And once we got it going, there was some questions whether it needed to continue or not. And I get exactly what you're saying. You just can't all of a sudden get widget company together and have the manufacturing plant and also have the personnel to manufacture the widgets. You can't happen all of a sudden overnight. So in the history of using tariffs in the United States, how has it worked for us? How hasn't it worked for us?
I think the one rationale for using tariffs that probably makes the most sense from an economic perspective is if you have a new industry that is very uncompetitive because it's so new. And you want to protect that industry to allow it time to learn how to produce the goods or services so it can compete on the global market. Then that might be a situation where you say for the first 5 years or for the next 7, 8 years, we're going to impose tariffs which are gradually going to be removed to allow you to build up your expertise, and as you lower your costs, we'll lower the tariffs, and then in 10 years you'll be a competitor on the world market. That I think most economists say, yeah, because you don't do that, you're never going to get a learning curve in the first 5 years to be able to compete. You'll never start. The challenge with tariffs is that a lot of times those tariffs are put in place and then they're never removed after several years and they stay forever. And that can cause other countries to get frustrated and angry and impose their own retaliatory tariffs and say, you're not going to remove your 25% tariff. We're going to impose a 25% tariff to make things legal again. And that's often what you see historically is that what seems we'll just do this to protect ourselves for a little bit leads to tariffs going back and forth. And if it gets really out of hand, it becomes a trade war where essentially almost all trade gets shut down, or large portions. And this is one of the drivers of the Great Depression. Massive tariffs were placed by countries all over the world, and global trade essentially shut down in the 20s. Tariffs that are put in place to allow an industry to grow, you reduce output. The taxes and tariffs reduce output. That's okay in the developing your industry because you're reducing the output from the foreign countries to replace it with yours. To your point, do we have enough productive capacity in the United States to produce all the solar panels and the cars and the electronics and the clothing and et cetera? Especially if we get to the point where other countries start imposing tariffs on us, so we can't export all the extra stuff that we build that we don't need.
This is Arnold Strickler with Mark Langston of St. Louis in Tune. We are talking to John Horn. He's professor of practice in economics at the Olin Business School at Washington University in St. Louis. John, a couple things. In keeping the tariff, that's almost like a subsidy. Would you compare it that way? It's just not an outright. Is it a subsidy, or am I looking at that incorrectly?
It's not incorrect. Subsidies really are just negative taxes. So I could. If we're thinking about two different producers, I can tax Mark $1 every product he produces, which make his cost go up by $1 relative to you. Or I could say, Mark, I'm going to leave your cost the same, but Arnold, I'm just going to give you an extra $1 every time you produce a product. That lowers your cost by $1. So logistically, how I do it, there's distribution effects on the margin effects, but for the most part, I can either subsidize my local producers or I tax their foreign producers. It should have about the same effect in terms of what happens to prices ultimately.
Now, when you were talking about the shirt thing, and from France, what rolled into my mind was when you start getting into this little mini trade war. This really raises the ability of black markets to come onto the scene and have their own little subsidization going on and their own little free market going on. Does that happen frequently, or what's the history of that kind of impact?
It can, especially if the tariffs are very targeted at particular products. The tariffs that Trump administration is talking about now would be across the board, every country, 25%. Hard for a black marketer to smuggle around. But you can think about if we know the Trump prohibition, when there were outlaws on alcohol, if there were tariffs on certain types of wine from France, for example, like we were tariffing. We were tariffing wine from France. Well, someone could buy the wine from France and ship it over Spain and then down to somewhere else and bring it in crates that were surrounded by bottles from Italy or something. So customs didn't find it. You can see some of that happening. I think the challenge with what's being proposed now is hard to black market low parts, and it's hard to black market components, computer components, and silver panel components, and all the other stuff that's being discussed on a larger scale, but especially if it's across the board.
And you also mentioned something that triggered my mind, that we are in such a global economy now, where many of the things that here in our studio, I'm talking into this microphone. I have headphones on. This may be manufactured in the United States, this microphone, but some of the components may be manufactured all around the world, and then they're assembled here. So how does all of this discussion of tariffs and tariffing really impact the global economy?
Yeah, so almost certainly your microphone was not produced 100% in the United States. There are only parts that are produced elsewhere. One example which has been talked about a lot is the automotive sector. That most cars that are produced in the United States have either parts or assembly or sub-assembly which is done in Canada or Mexico in addition to the United States. And the challenge with the tariffs are not that it doesn't, at least on the surface, seem like what they're proposing is just 25% tariff on the final car. It's 25% on all parts and cars that are imported in the United States. So some cars you might have part which is produced in Canada and then shipped to the United States, which then combined with something else, and then shipped to Mexico, which is combined with something else, which is shipped to the States, which is Canada, and then et cetera. Every time that crosses the border, there's another 25% tariff which gets put on top. on top of what I've already put in place. So it's not just that a $20,000 car becomes $25,000. It could be $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 because of all the compounding of the tariff on top of the additional costs that the tariffs imposed. And the challenge, I said how long is it really going to affect the economy? When you're thinking about whether to build a production plant for an automotive factory, it's like a 25-year decision. You're not going to open a factory and then it 4 or 5 years now the tariffs go away. Like, you're stuck. And so I'm not sure how quickly firms are going to jump to say, okay, we're going to start producing in the U.S. so we don't have to pay these tariffs. Especially if 2 years from now or a year from now, the Trump administration says, see, we got production back, taking away the tariffs. You know what we do. We keep going back and forth, and we stay here. I think that's the challenge that a lot of companies are facing, even for service type of operations where it's not physical plants, but it's investing in the people, the talent to grow those operations. It's hard to move them around and just say, we're going to open an operation in this country, now we're going to open in that country, now we're going to open in that country. You can't move a plant around, you can't move individuals around en masse across the entire globe just to take advantage of the conditions of tariffs.
And that has, go ahead, Mark.
It just doesn't seem right.
No.
It does not. I would hope that the administration was thinking about this before they even approached this subject. But exactly what you're saying, the administration could be out in 4 years, and it could be a whole different ball game. And why am I going to, as a producer, going to invest just exactly like John was saying? Invest in, it's not an overnight investment. It's 25 years easily. And once you're committed, I don't know how you uncommit to that. And I would love to see more things produced in the United States. But it seems to me that our society has gone away from like an industrial society and more into a technological society. That's what it seems like to me, that we've been moving more that way instead of trying to. And now we're trying to maybe go back to more industrial producing things like this. So I'm confused by the whole thing.
You're not confused. I think that's the challenge that people are trying to wrestle with is that we have become a more service economy as opposed to a product-oriented economy. We're not producing as much stuff. And the thought was originally, okay, that's fine. We can design the iPhone in California and have it manufactured in China, Taiwan, wherever. And okay, but what people leaders have started to realize, business leaders have started to realize also is that if I don't have the design where the manufacturer is, it's hard for me to figure out a better way of designing a product because I can't tinker with the manufacturing. And we've seen part of the growth of China in terms of designing products itself is that they're doing so much manufacturing that as they're manufacturing products for others, they're also trying to manufacture products for themselves and realize, oh, there's a better way we can produce a product. They don't tell Apple that. They just produce it themselves. Yes, there are concerns and situations where China is taking the designs from iPhone and then building off of it themselves, which they shouldn't be doing according to property law. But the key point is that if I'm not actually where the manufacturing is, it makes it harder for me to design, which then means the whole service part of the industry goes away. But on the other hand, if we decide to start manufacturing in the United States, the thought is always, we'll just have 10,000 workers in the factory in China, we'll have 10,000 workers in the U.S. factory. No, we'll take the 10,000 workers from China, move that factory over here, and we might hire 1,500 people. Because, to your point, a lot of what makes production in the U.S. more cost-effective is to use more automation and have higher skilled workers who can use automated equipment as opposed to manual equipment. And that means that, sure, we can have the manufacturing come back, but that doesn't mean the jobs necessarily coming back. And that's, I think what a lot of people are the administration is saying the benefit of the tariffs are. We'll produce here, we'll have jobs, we'll have thriving middle class, et cetera. But it's not clear that the jobs will come back. If the manufacturing, if it does. And then what?
I have a little exit ramp here. Chris, I think that having this trade with other countries, I think it helps spread capitalism, freedom, growth for these other countries that are not as fortunate as we are in the United States, and we certainly have our struggles. But I think it helps some of these economies. Some of the maybe not China necessarily. China's struggling too, as I understand. But I think this helps.
Like Vietnam,
Korea. This helps these people, and I think the tariff is going to hurt us as the United States in just trying to embrace the world and help the world get better. And anyway, that's not
yeah. If you look at the last 20, 30 years, the number of people around the world that live in poverty has shrunk. The most I think that's ever shrunk in the history of humankind. The growth of globalization and the spreading of economic opportunity has pulled a lot of people out of poverty. The challenge is, as you start to get those people pulled out of poverty, that does depress wages in high-income countries. That economics just, that's what happens. And it does. It also creates challenges down the road. China, yes, they're facing the problem now that for them to keep being more efficient in manufacturing, they're turning more to automation. So they're having a harder time creating the jobs of the future for their population. At the same time, their population is aging even faster and a larger number than the U.S. population we're talking about. The baby boomers, their demographics are even worse than in the United States, and they're going to have a smaller portion of workers supporting the retirees and elderly than the United States. And so they're facing the same problems that we're facing in terms of how do we create economic growth to support the aging population and provide jobs for the people coming in. The very simplest model of trade. And when I teach trade to my students, I would start with them. I say, why does anyone trade? Like, why do I can mow my own lawn. I do mow my own lawn, but a lot of my neighbors hire someone to mow the lawn for them. Like, why don't they get out there and push the lawnmower? I can do it. They could do it. Why don't they? And after a little bit of struggling around, they come to the realization that the only reason any two individuals engage in some kind of trade or transaction is because it makes them both better off. And it's the same why two companies trade with each other, because it makes them both better off. So we keep extending that. Countries trade with each other because it makes them both collectively as a whole better off. But trade makes different individuals within the country better off and others worse off. And we also know that from the basics of trade, which is some workers and some owners in the United States are much better off because of global trade. And there are workers and some owners in the U.S. that were much worse off because of global trade. And in theory, the pie got so much bigger that you should have been able to take a little bit of the place from the people better off and distribute it to the people that got worse off. And everyone's better off, or at least no one's worse off. We didn't, because that's a political decision. That's not an economic decision. Economics can tell you how much of the pie you have to slice off. But that's a political decision about how we're going to retrain workers, how we're going to support growth in towns or regions which lost their manufacturing facility, how are we going to invest in the next wave of technology to, et cetera. That there's an active element which has to compensate the losers of global trade from the winners, and both parties essentially have ignored that for the last 30 years. And I think that's why you see a lot of the anger from the areas of the U.S. which lost out the global trade being so vocal, saying, you promised all these wonderful things. It would be great for the rest of the world who came out of poverty, but what about us?
That's a good question, and we're going to talk to John Horn some more after our break. This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston of St. Louis and Tune. Don't go away, because we've got a whole lot more about tariffs. As strange as it may sound, at Better Rate Mortgage, we love talking to people about mortgages. Everyone in St. Louis promises a better mortgage rate, but what you really need to turn that perfect house into your dream home is a better mortgage. At Better Rate Mortgage, we open the door to so much more. So where are you in the home buying process? Researching? Maybe wondering how much you can afford? House hunting. Get a pre-approval from Better Rate Mortgage. Ready to buy. Our team is ready to make your mortgage process fast and easy. Whether you're purchasing your first home or taking cash out to make your dream home even dreamier, our door is open. Come on in and get started today. We'll show you how. Call Sean directly at 314-375-3293 or online at betterratemortgage.com. Remember, at Better Rate Mortgage, a better rate is just the beginning. BetterRateMortgage.com. NMLS ID score 01333. An equal housing lender. Welcome back to St. Louis in Tune. This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston. We are talking with John Horn, professor of practice in economics at the Olin Business School at Washington University in St. Louis. John, before we get back into our conversation about tariffs, I want to give you an outline of what my brain is thinking. Global trade versus fair trade. What are they? The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. And some alternatives to using tariffs and the effectiveness of those. But I guess my first question, I know you like game theory, and I know you've done some war games, and people think, I guess war games are kind of shoot 'em up. Yeah, that kind of some video game or something like that. But so two questions. Number one, do you do the New York Times games every day?
I do with my son, yes, but I'm behind routine with him.
Okay, and secondly, explain war games, because when I mentioned that at the front end of the conversation with you, I'm sure people were like, oh, is this Call to Duty, or what is this?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, war games are inspired by war games the military started using 200 some years ago. And the concept of war games in the military is, I'm going to take my army, take half of them, and tell them, here's how the enemy we're going to be fighting behaves. You behave like them, so we can practice how to battle against them without live ammunition. We set up different types of terrain, we set up different types of situations to challenge how we should use our troops to combat that. That's the military war game. And used for the inspiration, as you said, for video games. There have been movies about these. There's a famous movie from about 35, 40 years ago with Matthew Broderick training a computer to learn how to play these games. For business war games, it's the same concept, but instead of in a military war game, I have an enemy I'm fighting. I have helicopters. I have troops. I have a terrain over which I'm fighting. I have a time period over which I have to battle or to prevent them from succeeding, etc. A business war game is, instead of having an enemy, I have competitors or a set of competitors or competitors and regulators. Instead of having tanks and infantry and helicopters, I have pricing and product decisions and capacity and warehousing that I can place around the terrain. Isn't land, it's the markets, which cities, which countries, which types of markets, and customer segments, etc. So, business war game, essentially it's a simulation where you set up a construct to simulate what the real world is going to look like for that business decision. And then you have someone from your organization role play the competitor. What would you do with pricing and product and choice of which customers to go after, and we'll make our choices, and we'll see how that plays out. And like in a military war game, if your army loses, you don't do that in the real world. And a business war game, it helps you understand that's not a good choice to make. We should have a different business choice before we actually do that in the real world. So that's what business war games are. I was actually just reading an article this morning in the New York Times about a group that had gotten together a week or two ago to war game out what could happen with the tariffs that are planned to be put in place tomorrow, to see how would other countries respond, what would the impact be on macroeconomic outcomes, what would the impact be on where stuff happens, etc. So it is a technique which is even being used by some groups to try to understand how might this all play out in terms of whether it's a trade war or whether we get a better outcome to that.
And that would provide some people with the ability to more prepare and be ready for something that they see as inevitable, or maybe no, I don't think that's going to happen, so we don't need to do that. That's very interesting strategies.
Yeah, and the challenge with this situation, having done these for over 20 years now, one of the biggest challenges with running a war game for companies is most of my clients would believe that their competitors should act a certain way. And this was the genesis of the book you had mentioned earlier about unintended competitors' mindset. A lot of my competitors, or a lot of my clients would say their competitors were irrational. They were making the wrong decision. And I was always able to get my client to explain why the competitor made the decision, which to me, that's not irrational. It's good for them, but bad for you. And as I like to point out, that's business. You're not trying to help your competitor, you're trying to help yourself out. And the real key which makes these war games work or not is having the other players role play not only how the other side plays, but the objective the other side is trying to achieve. So one thing we're not sure of yet is I don't think anyone is exactly sure of is what is the objective of President Trump. Sometimes he has said the objective is we want to have manufacturing brought back to the U.S. Sometimes the objective seems to be no, we want to just rebalance the trade deficit. Sometimes it feels like we want to balance our deficit, our debt, by having these tariffs instead of income taxes. And because it's not exactly clear, some people are arguing making it not clear so that other countries will cut good deals with us. That could be an objective, but that's not the same objective as if we're putting 25% tariffs in place until everything's manufactured in the United States again. And I think the hard part, even reading the debrief of this war game that happened a couple weeks ago, it wasn't clear to me that they were playing the game under what I call the old rules of government and diplomacy and interaction, as opposed to the Trump rules of we're not exactly sure what the objective is. And a lot of economists have pointed out that he wants a dollar, but he wants to have more exports. And economically, those two things don't work. If you have a really strong dollar, your exports are more expensive. You actually import more. And if you want to have a lot more exports, you got to have a weaker dollar. But that means you've got other economic challenges to face. And so it's, and the real uncertainty here is not will tariffs lead to counter tariffs and will tariffs slow down the economy, lead to inflation. It will happen to some extent or other. I think the real thing I'm still trying to triangulate in on is what exactly is the end goal, what's the ultimate objective. And if we knew that, we could back into, here's how this is going to likely play out, and let's just get there before we have to go through 10 years of struggle because we know where this is supposed to end up. I think that's the part that, to me, is most risky because if you don't understand the other side's objective, it's hard to know how to play the game against them.
Amen. I couldn't agree more. I think the uncertainty is and not having a clear path as to what's the objective here, where are we going. On the other hand, I'm just going to say this. On the other hand, if you're gonna be negotiating, like you said, maybe I want to negotiate those shirts to be cheaper, but it's.
This is the whole it's called the madman theory of negotiations. I don't know what you're going to do, and so I just accommodate everything you ask for. And
there's no I don't want to say there's no leadership, but there's no clear path. There's no real explanation. I don't see the target. I don't. Yeah, and I understand change is tough. Change is tough, but come on.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about the war game about the trade is that it started really bad. Like at lunchtime, they had a scoreboard of how things were going, red and yellow, and it was like red across the board. It was just inflation was bad, trade was down, economies were shrinking. By the end of the day, it got to yellow. And what wasn't clear to me, it hinted at the participants knew the game was ending at the end of the day. There's no end to the game of the real life. It's not the end. So I don't know if the yields are outrageous because we have to do something because the game is over. And I've seen in the war games, IPOC design is you can't let players try to trick the game because you got to play the game. The other thing was the participants, some of the readouts said, for now the players said we have to work with the U.S., but if the discussion said if there's a lot of political blowback against the U.S. because of these, that there would be a faster and quicker shift towards China as the negotiating partner. And so that's again what we don't know is how China's going to play this game, standing up and waving, saying, we're not going to do this to you. Come over and trade with us. We have all the manufacturing anyway. Will countries still say, no, we're going to stick with the U.S. for as it is? Or will they say, we're done with this? Go be the quote madman by yourself. Use your madman theory with yourself. You can go play in another sandbox. And the analogy I like to use there is, if you're a kid playing on the playground and someone just stomps around saying, I'm going to do what I want to do, yeah, you might put up with it for a while, but eventually all the kids just walk off and go play somewhere else. And when do we get to that point is not clear to me.
And that's really what you're describing to me. It sounds like free market.
Yeah.
China's we're here. We're ready to do your stuff for you.
Yeah,
and that's where I say economics has economic things to say, but there's a lot of political stuff which also affects how this is going to play out too.
Two more things related to this topic. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act back during the Depression and the impact that some economists say it had on the Depression, and some were like, no, we were tariffing before that. It was just a continuation. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's debate about what did it cause or not. My thought is what was so bad about the Smoot-Hawley tariffs in the 20s was that it led to even more retaliation and tariffs on top of tariffs, and then even more tariff retaliation and more tariffs. So up until that point, it had been more like we're going to impose a 15% tariff and it just stayed there. That's a tariff to your point. Businesses know how to plan around, how to accommodate, how to incorporate into their thinking. But when the tariff goes from 15%, 20%, to 30%, 45%, to 50%, you don't know, is it going to stop? Is it going to keep going? Is it something we're doing which is causing it to keep going? So that's the uncertainty which I think is different about those tariffs than just any other tariff that happened. And I think that's the risk today is that, or starting tomorrow, is if the 25% tariffs have been placed across the board on everything, will other countries say, look, give it a week, claim victory, and then the tariffs will go away because we did fight back? Or will they all say, we're fighting back because we're not going to put up with this? And that could lead to even more tariffs and more tariffs. Again, especially with not knowing what the objective is it just quote win, or is it to bring back manufacturing? Is it to get rid of the trade deficit? Is it to what? That's the part that I think is with the analogy of the Smoot-Hawley is the risk of it leading to more and more tariffs.
Before you get to your second question, John, I don't want to put you in a corner here, but are tariffs really beneficial at all? They just don't seem like they are to me. It seems like it stirs up more of the pot and bad feelings and higher prices and the laundry list of stuff. It just does not seem, I think even Ronald Reagan had addressed this back in his time. I've seen lately where he said tariffs were not good. Your thoughts?
Yeah, as someone who's been following this since the Reagan days also, it's interesting to see that the Republican Party, which was very pro-free trade in the 80s and 90s, and in subsequent years has now shifted towards a very protectionist tariffs kind of policy at any point. I think the only real good argument I can think of for tariffs is for if you're developing a new technology, if you're developing a new industry that needs time to learn how to do it, not just needs time to build up capacity at the lower cost, but I need to figure out how to actually make these things or to use the service, and therefore we need some time to learn so that we can compete on the global market. I could see an argument for, like I said earlier, decreasing tariffs over time, putting tariffs in place and then gradually getting rid of them as like support to help. And you could have those subsidies instead. That's in some ways just semantically how you logistically put them in place. But you could see an argument for that. Beyond that, I think for the United States in particular, it's hard to argue that we are at a point where we're developing industries or developing skills and technologies that need support from the rest relative to the rest of the world. We are an advanced economy, and we're an advanced economy in lots of different ways. So it's harder for me to see how that's a good reason. I'm one of the economists who believes that free trade is good because For the most part, again, trade creates value, and you're not going to trade with someone unless it creates value. But on the other hand, being very explicit about the fact that there will be winners and losers, and you have to support the losers in society, or else it's going to create outcomes down the road, which are going to be a lot of what we see now, people getting very angry, saying, I need to get the benefit of globalization. That's not fair.
Yeah. And my last question is a tough one in that what are the alternatives to using that? But it seems like that's really not a fair question to ask from my vantage point after listening to you, because there are so many factors that are intertwined with each other, not only locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally, with business, with agriculture, with all kinds of things that it's hard to say from my vantage point that there is an alternative other than a subsidy, and then that's basically a tariff in a different way.
Right.
And there are things like quotas you can put in place, or quotas plus tariffs with economics that can show you it's essentially the same as putting a tariff in place anyway. In fact, it's interesting that when I teach the World Trade Organization, which is, it's not really the arbiter or the organization which tells countries how to trade, they play the role like a referee and says, you come and show us the agreement you've signed, and we'll try to interpret them and help you figure out this argument you're having. But their approach to this is to say, if you have a tariff, lower it. Once you have a tariff, don't ever raise it again. And if you have something other than tariffs, like quotas or subsidies or regulations or whatever it is, convert it to a tariff, because then we can find the first two rules. And the whole objective of the World Trade Organization is to let's create a situation where we can have beneficial trade that creates value for both sides, or all sides. But then we still get back to the question of who's going to compensate the losers inside each country from the winners. And that gets a really challenging political problem. I don't think there's an easy way to get the benefits of global trade without instead of having tariffs or something else put in place to restrict trade, because that's the whole point. And these tariffs, quotas, regulations, they restrict trade. And you either get the benefit of globalization and have a bigger pie and figure out how to split that pie, or you say everyone has the same share of the pie, but it's just not going to get bigger. So you're still going to eat, and you're going to have the same relative amount to eat relative to everyone else, but you're not going to get more to eat. And that's a trade-off, which I get frustrated as an economist we're not talking about. That the bigger picture, like what do we want our society to look like, and then let's figure out how to get there, which is fair and everyone feels happy with, as opposed to let's just black tariffs to do something.
We really appreciate the time that you've given us today out of your schedule. Folks, we've been talking to John Horn. He's professor of practice and economics at the Olin Business School at Washington University in St. Louis. John, thank you again. Greatly appreciate your time today and the insights that you were able to give our listeners about this. And the time, it's really a detailed, really class in a concise manner of tariffs and the impact on our national and international economics. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on, Mark. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John, very much.
Have a great week.
Yeah. Good luck.
You too.
Bye. Good luck with the tariffs. Wow.
Mark, we do have a radio address that President Reagan did on free and fair trade that he gave on April 25th, 1987, and I think we just have enough time to listen to that.
Okay.
My fellow Americans, Prime Minister Nakasone of Japan will be visiting me here at the White House next week. It's an important visit because while I expect to take up our relations with our good friend Japan, which overall remain excellent, recent disagreements between our two countries on the issue of trade will also be high on our agenda. As perhaps you've heard, last week I placed new duties on some Japanese products in response to Japan's inability to enforce their trade agreement with us on electronic devices called semiconductors. Now, imposing such tariffs or trade barriers and restrictions of any kind are steps that I am loath to take. And in a moment I'll mention the sound economic reasons for this. That over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. But the Japanese semiconductors were a special case. We had clear evidence that Japanese companies were engaging in unfair trade practices that violated an agreement between Japan and the United States. We expect our trading partners to live up to their agreements. As I've often said, our commitment to free trade is also a commitment to fair trade. In imposing these tariffs, we were just trying to deal with a particular problem, not begin a trade war. So next week, I'll be giving Prime Minister Nakasone the same message. We want to continue to work cooperatively on trade problems and want very much to lift these trade restrictions as soon as evidence permits. We want to do this because we feel both Japan and the United States have an obligation to promote the prosperity and economic development that only free trade can bring. Now that message of free trade is one I conveyed to Canada's leaders a few weeks ago, and it was warmly received there. Indeed, throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. Now, there are sound historical reasons for this. For those of us who lived through the Great Depression, the memory of the suffering it caused is deep and searing. And today, many economic analysts and historians argue that high tariff legislation passed back in that period, called the Smoot-Hawley tariff, greatly deepened the Depression and prevented economic recovery. You see, at first, when someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. What eventually occurs is, first, homegrown industries start relying on government protection in the form of high tariffs. They stop competing and stop making the innovative management and technological changes they need to succeed in world markets. And then, while all this is going on, something even worse occurs. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. The result is more and more tariffs, higher and higher trade barriers, and less competition. So soon, because of the prices made artificially high by tariffs that subsidize inefficiency and poor management, people stop buying. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. The memory of all this occurring back in the 30s made me determined when I came to Washington to spare the American people the protectionist legislation that destroys prosperity. Now, it hasn't always been easy. There are those in Congress, just as there were back in the 30s, who want to go for the political advantage, who risk America's prosperity for the sake of a short-term appeal to some special interest group who forget that more than 5 million American jobs are directly tied to the foreign export business, and additional millions are tied to imports. Well, I've never forgotten those jobs, and on trade issues, by and large, we've done well. In certain select cases, like the Japanese semiconductors, we've taken steps to stop unfair practices against American products. But we've still maintained our basic long-term commitment to free trade and economic growth. So, with my meeting with Prime Minister Nakasone and the Venice Economic Summit coming up, it's terribly important not to restrict the President's options in such trade dealings with foreign governments. Unfortunately, some in the Congress are trying to do exactly that. I'll keep you informed on this dangerous legislation because it's just another form of protectionism, and I may need your help to stop it. Remember, America's jobs and growth are at stake. Until next week, thanks for listening, and God bless you.
What an interesting conversation we've had today with John Horn, and then listening to President Reagan with his address about that market really makes you wonder.
Yeah. It does. Are we in a full circle here? Why are we visiting this again? Have we never learned from the past? I want to say one thing about politics here. I've never known the Republicans to be attacking more of a. They don't like taxes. They're always taking taxes away.
Right.
So I'm a bit confused, but I'm hoping I'll find clarity.
I think one of the key points that I got from our conversation with John was the fact that there is no target. There is no. What is the plan here? Why are we doing this? There are multiple explanations, but there is no definitive. This is why we're doing that.
Right. It's good. Yeah.
Well, that's all for this hour, folks. We thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can listen to additional shows at stlandtune.com. Consider leaving a review on our website, Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue to grow. Thanks to Bob Berthasell for our theme music, our sponsor, Better Rate Mortgage, our guest, John Horn from Washington University, and co-host Mark Langston. And we thank you for being a part of our community of curious minds. St. Louis in Tune is a production of Motif Media Group and the U.S. Radio Network. Remember to keep seeking, keep learning, walk worthy, and let your light shine. For St. Louis in Tune, I'm Arnold Stricker.